All right, that Jeff Bezos wedding is just over the top. Just way too much. We're going to talk a little bit about him and her and what's going on with that. Also, the Supreme Court made a couple of big decisions related to faith, really. And we want to talk about that as well. Good morning, everybody. I'm with Pastor Alfredo Romero of Rock of Life Fellowship. Good morning, Pastor.
Good morning.
Yeah, my name is Jerry Lennon. We're the co-host of this outfit. So the court issued a couple of significant opinions this week. The main one, really, in terms of not just Christianity, but people who are more traditional believers, and Jews, Muslims, Christians certainly, enforcing parental rights over the public school board's insistence that parents could not exempt their children from what are pro-LGBTQ lessons. And so this seemed, and it was a 6-3 decision. The three liberal women voted against that. And I don't know, Pastor, that's one. We'll get to that. The other one found it constitutional that a Texas law requires porn sites to confirm the age of viewers, that they must be at least 18 or over, which, I mean, I couldn't believe that anybody would disagree with that either. Both of those just I found to be, very, well, as a person of faith, I mean, and as a parent, I can't believe that these were even seriously discussed.
Yeah, well, the one thing I liked is that there was a news story that said how the school agenda of having LGBTQ materials for like elementary school age brought together different faiths. I mean, they actually showed people outside a school board room, there was Muslims, there was Christians, there was atheists, you name it, there was Jewish people, all these different faiths. These people held signs saying, we can determine the fate of our own children, we can determine the education of our own children. And they brought, the whole story with line was how it brought people together to what they called common sense.
Yeah.
Which is common sense. You don't teach things like that to elementary school or junior high.
Well, the argument I see sometimes is that, well, we're not advocating it. We're not saying that people should become gay or lesbian or trans or whatever it may be. We're just saying that it exists, and therefore we just need to let people know it exists. Well, from a Christian standpoint, that's really not good enough, because it's not the lessons in Christianity is in other Muslim
beliefs,
other beliefs,
faith
is
beliefs.
That it's a sin. Okay, it's not just that, it's not like either you accept it or don't accept it. It's the belief that it is actually a sinful thing to do and goes against God's desires, and it's something that He abhors. That's the belief for those who are opposed to teaching the LGBTQ curriculum.
True.
We understand, especially when we're talking about, what are we talking, kindergarten through, 6th, 7th grade?
Yeah, 6th, 7th grade. Obviously, that's the time.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, if you take the faith out of it, there's been a lot of stories that never mention spirituality or faith. It's all about how did that type of sexuality even get to be part of the curriculum. And a lot of it, the story that I saw, I'm trying to remember which news source, but you can look it up, that there was a difference in the type of teachers they were hiring. There was teachers that were of the LGBT group that somehow became inside of schools, and even school board members were of the LGBTQ group. That was one of the news stories I saw. But even without the spirituality and the faith aspect, which I'm obviously, for as a Christian, how did that get into the curriculum? How did that get into a kindergarten, first grade? Now, some of the books, this is where they were saying that we were banning books, that they considered banning books, because the name of the books were My Pink Dress, All of My Names, The Rainbow, and then there was more and more. Another one was something, I believe it, because I saw them in a store. Another one was called Hello, I'm Peter.
Again, and the thing is, it's one thing if these things are being discussed, and I'm not even sure they should be discussed at the junior high school and high school level. I just don't think it's necessary. I mean, especially if you're somebody who's a person of faith who believes this kind of, belief,
doctrine,
this kind of expression is sinful.
Yeah.
And the curriculum, I'm sure, does not use in the public school system the word sin to describe LGBTQ plus relationships, and that is the essence of it. I mean, it's one thing to say, if you're a Christian parent who believes this is wrong, which is what they believe, what the Bible says. It's not. It's fine to say this exists, but it's like saying these are things that displeases God, and it exists. Don't do it. But that's not what's being mentioned in the public school system. It's just treated as, oh, this is just something that is another choice or a way people are and express their love. And while that might be true, it goes counter to what a Christian's belief is, which is that it's not enough to say that it exists. A Christian would say, a conservative Christian would say, a traditional Christian would say, wait a minute, this is not only does it exist, we understand that, but we think it's a sinful thing to be involved in.
Yes, God calls it an abomination.
The other decision that was made. So anyway, that went 6-3. So parents are allowed to tell their children, you know what? I don't want you being part of these classes when that kind of stuff is being discussed. Out you go. You go do something different during that hour of class session. And that's a good thing. That seems to be a good thing. Parents should have a decision to how they want to raise their kids.
Yeah, and we were talking just a little bit earlier before the show. It's like, what happened to the 7th, 8th grade? Get your parents' signature because we're going to talk about biology.
Yeah.
They never said gender, which is actually a made-up word from the 60s by Alfred Kinsey. But it's sex. You have male and female. But what happened to the biology classes? What was your teacher's name?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now. There were two 6th grade classes. There was Mr. Mays, who you didn't want because he was a mean guy, or you got Mrs. Dooling, who you did want. She was a nice woman. So I got Mrs. Dooling. Well, at any rate, one day we're told, have your parents give us a paper. We're going to have to discuss whatever it was called at the time.
Reproductive
or maybe it was even called sex education.
It was called sex
Maybe
yeah.
it was. I don't know what it was. I didn't know what it meant. I handed the paper. My mom and dad signed it, sent it back. One day we go into a class, and I go over to Mr. Mays' class with all the boys, and all the girls go over to Mrs. Dooling's class. And they talk about stuff I have no idea what they're talking about. They have pictures of, like you say, fallopian tubes or something. I don't know what the devil they're talking about.
I remember them going, see, now the bee pollinates the flower.
Yeah, and then all I'm thinking of, that's what they were talking about. You're right. And I was thinking to myself, and I'm not even paying any attention to this. I'm 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old. I'm thinking about my Little League team. I'm thinking about, how my baseball team is going to play because we were playing for I forget what team I was playing for, whatever team it was, and we're thinking about baseball. We're not even thinking about any of this. I had no idea what they were talking about. In fact, I think if you put me in that class right now, go back to 1971 and sit in that classroom, I wouldn't know what the devil they were talking about because it was just so,
It was biology. They talked about just how babies are made, the reproductive system. That was pretty much it. And they did tell the difference between a boy and a girl. Now, the boy and the girl, it was a bee and a flower.
Right.
So it was just basic biology, right? And I'd always got a kick out of the people when they asked them, well, what's a woman? They go, well, I'm not a biologist. I don't know. Yeah. And one lady responded to somebody that says, well, I don't know what a woman is because I'm not a biologist. She goes, well, I'm not a veterinarian, but I know what a dog is.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that all the time. Well, it was. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not. The one I always use is, well, I'm not a meteorologist, but I know when it's raining outside.
Yeah.
Right. The other decision made by the Supreme Court, I thought, again, was the other one had some merit to it, but this one I just didn't understand. There was a constitutional Texas law that required porn sites to confirm the age of viewers. What? To me, that seems like I can't believe that that 3 people voted against it. It was a 6-3 majority decision. Wasn't there a day back when there was a Playboy magazine and they were at the counter
at the local liquor store,
at a 7-Eleven or whatever it was, and you would look down at there, and if you wanted to get one of those, you had to be, I think, 18 years old or something. You had to show identification to get a Playboy or a Penthouse magazine. And now,
Just bring up your phone.
Yes, yeah. So now you can't have an age confirmation to make sure an adult says that a younger viewer doesn't see it. I can't believe that anybody would be opposed to this.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's insane. But you're right. I'll tell you one thing. The only magazine I ever bought in my entire life that was a Playboy magazine was after John Lennon was shot. And it was a big thing that they had done an interview with him just a couple days before he died. Mm-hmm. And I bought it for the articles.
Yeah, you always buy it for the articles. Sure, wink, wink, nod, nod.
Yeah, but I did. I bought it because John Lennon was on the cover, and they had this big interview with him. Because back then you couldn't type in the computer and bring up his interview. You had to actually buy.
Or you couldn't bring up pictures of women who were undressed either.
No, you couldn't. Absolutely.
Right. And so you had to have an identification. And so if a young person has a phone, isn't it this basic logic to say a parent should have control over whether, or anybody, there should be adult supervision, just like there's adult supervision back in the day. If somebody wanted to go to an X-rated movie, you had to have identification. I mean, it's
not anymore.
I can't believe those places even existed.
Yeah, they don't even check your ID nowadays. It's all done by an app.
Yeah. Well, those places don't exist anymore.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing about it is I remember going to the movies back then, and you used to be able to hop between movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't do that anymore because we would try to get into the R movies.
Right.
We'd buy a ticket for G and go see the R movie. Not for the sex, but it was like there's a lot of R ratings back then.
Right.
So yeah, and the whole thing about it is, and then you go back to the rationalization of you have to verify your age 18 to join the Army, but they don't verify your age of 18.
Yeah.
To look up a porn site. Yeah,
Right.
obviously, and you're right. Who's the three people that are opposed to this?
Right.
I would bet. I don't know. I can't guess.
Well, they're Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson.
Do they have children?
I don't think so.
That might be a big thing.
That may be part of it. You never know. Hey, we're going to step aside. We're going to talk about this Bezos wedding. This thing is just out of control, man. It is just nuts. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the show. I don't know about this Jeff Bezos wedding, that Lauren Sanchez. $50 million wedding. The guy's worth $237 billion. Okay. But can you have too much? Can you have too much? And far be it from me. I don't want to I'm not getting political here. I really am not. But I was reading of all news agencies, MSNBC. MSNBC had a person write an opinion piece on MSNBC. Why the exorbitance of the Bezos-Sanchez wedding is hitting such a nerve. And in the writes, from Venice to New York City, the world is growing weary of the extraordinary wealth divide between the uber-wealthy, or the oligarchy, and the rest of us. This is not envy. This is not, oh boy, we wish we had that kind of money and I could do that. If I had that kind of money, I would never put on such of an extravagant show, ever. Just because what it says about them, who they are, it doesn't speak to their love. It doesn't speak to it doesn't speak to the love that that Lauren Sanchez and Jeff Bezos have for one another, because they have this extraordinary wedding.
Yeah.
It does not speak to their love. It just speaks to the fact that they can put on a big show and invite all these celebrities and spend how much her dress was about, what, $50,000? Granted, that is chump change for Bezos. I understand that. But gosh, I always think that when somebody expects you to zig, that's when you should zag. This would be the time for Bezos and Lauren Sanchez to say, let's just tone it down. Let's have a basic, humble wedding that we show the love that we have for one another. It feels less like love than it does a show. And a wedding is supposed to be about loving that person, through richer or poorer. When those vows came and they said for richer or poor, do you think that they nodded their head and say yes? I'm not so sure. Maybe the richer part.
I don't think they even put that in there.
I doubt they put that in there.
And the other thing, what kind of a conservative conversation would a billionaire have? Honey, we don't have to spend $50 million. Let's just spend a couple of million. Let's do $2 million. That's more reasonable. Right. What? My wedding with my wife cost a total of $3,500.
Yeah.
And my wife's dad said, I've got $3,500 to give you. That's it. We had our wedding at the VA hall in Pasadena, California.
And you're still married, what, 30 years later?
39 years later.
Almost 40 years later, you're still married. The wedding it was just fine.
Yeah.
And and I had my wife's parents put on a beautiful wedding as well. And to be honest with you, I don't remember a whole lot about it.
Really?
I mean, I remember we have home movies, so I'm always take a look at it, but when you think about anything that happens in life over the course of 25, 30, 40 years, what you remember little bits and pieces, but is it something that's going to last you for 40 years? It's hard to remember little things that happen in your life over the course of time, even when you're an adult.
Yeah, my wife remembers all that stuff. Yeah. Ooh, I remember when we went on our first date, honey. Remember you had that red shirt on and I had that pink top on and we were standing outside her house for our first kiss. I'm like, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Really? But here's the other thing I was going to say. I hope she signed, or he had his wife signed a prenup.
Well, I'm sure that was probably
I'm sure that was
done.
it.
Well, yeah, that's the staple of a real long-lasting commitment, isn't it?
We'll do a prenup.
Let's have a prenup.
Yeah.
I hope that didn't happen. I don't know.
No, I got to admit, this is one story, and I usually read everything. This is one story I did not really read. I just remembered that a couple days before the wedding, they did some type of a thing where they were covered in foam or bubbles or something. Yeah. And I thought it was weird, but I didn't click on it because I didn't care.
Yeah, this is MSNBC commenting on this. What might have been an opportunity to win a highly skeptical public has predictably become an exercise, listen closely, in tone-deaf excess.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel particularly fun to write about, and trust me, this woman says, I love weddings and bridal fashion, but incidentally, the relationship began, I guess, 6 years ago in 2019. Both had announced divorces the same year.
Oops.
Both of them had children in their previous marriages.
Oops.
Anyway, it was filled with controversy and whatnot. Just here, this just will tell you the Bezos proposed to Sanchez in 2023 with a light pink cushion cut diamond, estimated to be worth anywhere from $3 to $5 million.
Holy moly!
The proposal took place aboard his $500 million yacht during the Cannes Film Festival.
Horrible.
I guess that's okay, but it's. I mean, I'm not wishing them bad. Of course, none of us are wishing anybody to have bad things, but it just seems so unnecessary, and it seems like they're putting on a show. Look at us, and I find it to be really a turnoff.
Yeah, didn't she wear something inappropriate at
one of the award ceremonies?
Yeah,
I thought
the inauguration.
The inauguration,
right? It's it's really
kind of revealing,
inappropriate. Yeah,
yeah.
But it gets me how out of touch to everyday people. I mean, think of kind of wedding you could have with $100,000.
Yeah,
amazing wedding for $100,000, $50,000, $10,000. I mean.
I just don't understand it.
They're so out of touch with us.
Yeah, they are. There are people who have money. They're what are called hidden millionaires in our neighborhoods. There are people who have millions of dollars, and people don't even know it because they live such very humble lives that you never have any idea what somebody's net worth might be. They keep it underground, and those are the people that I kind of admire more. They live a very simple. Now I'm not one of them, but I have a few dollars, but. Even if I did, I'm not going to go buy a fancy car. I'm not going to have a wedding like that. It just seems like it defines you. These people, it seems to me, and I don't want to judge, but when you have a wedding like this, Bezos has allowed himself to be identified with his net worth, with his money, and that's how he identifies himself. And I find that to be. That's a troubling thing because we're not supposed to be envious, and I can tell you that you and I are not being envious.
No.
And I'm not at all. But I'm not being. I don't mean to. And maybe I sound a little bit judgmental.
Well, from the biblical standpoint, all right, it says so much about money. I think in the New Testament, there's 400 references to money and more than any other topic, and it's always around the love of money, how you are supposed to not waste your money. It talks about how we are supposed to be thrifty and generous and give with a grateful heart. That's Old Testament. But we are supposed to be able to be good stewards of what God blesses us with. So from people that struggle from paycheck to paycheck, or maybe what we really have is a 401k put away from years and years of working, but the day-to-day paychecks are what keep us going. We look at that and we think, as a Christian, and go, what a waste. I got to tell you something. So as a pastor, you know how difficult, and we kid about this all the time in church with my men's group and stuff. You know how difficult it would be for me to pull up to the church in a brand new Mercedes, or even a BMW, or even.
I would never want to be seen driving something like that.
No, never. I drive
I
a
would be-
2010 Toyota.
I drive a 2012, Honda CRV. I mean, it has 150,000 miles on it, and I'm actually proud to say that I don't have anything like that. I'm not proud. I'm not. Listen, I'm not. We're not living in poverty, but I've always said this before, and you've heard me say this 1,000 times. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I kind of suspect God wants us to live a little below our means. If you're able to get this, maybe don't get it. Dave Ramsey, and I'm not a huge fan of his either, but he comes across a little bit, a little arrogant sometimes, but at least my opinion. But sometimes he says something that's so smart. Don't ever buy a new car. Just get a good used car, and you're fine.
Yeah.
Don't waste money on a fancy new car. And when I was young, what am I to say? When I was young, I was living in Las Vegas. I drove a brand new 300ZX Nissan.
Oh, I had a 280ZX.
Yeah,
72,
yeah,
four-door.
Yeah, I thought it was the coolest cat on the planet.
It was. It was so cool car.
Yeah, but you know what? I wouldn't. You look back on it and you think, God, that was stupid. But I was young and stupid.
Yeah.
Jeff
I was like
is not
20.
young. Bezos is not young and stupid. Okay, he's not young and stupid. Maybe he's old and stupid. I really believe that. I'm really disappointed that Bezos or anybody has a wedding this ostentatious. Just reeks of just look what I've got. And look what I'm. It just turns. It's a huge turnoff.
It's kind of hedonistic, and the Bible says it's hedonistic in a sense because it's overindulgence, it's waste, it's very material, it's very non-spiritual. And I don't know what is spiritual. I mean, I can't judge his spirituality. But, then there's the people that'll say, think about the starving children in the world and what he could do to charity, $50 million. I mean, he probably gives a lot to charities for tax write-offs.
Yeah, he probably does.
For tax write-offs.
Yes.
But, so he can do what he wants. You're right. At the beginning of the show, you said, look, he can do what he wants.
Yeah.
But we can have our opinions and look at that and go, as Christians, and go, what a waste.
What about the wedding in Cana? We have no idea. We know that there was wine there and they ran out of wine. I guarantee you they did not run out of wine at the Bezos wedding. Okay, that did not happen. But so Jesus was certainly, he enjoyed going to parties and weddings and big festive events like that. Sure. But I get the feeling, I don't want to speak to Jesus. I'm not so sure he would be really excited about going to this. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Well, maybe I'm making too much of it.
No, I don't. Yeah, maybe we are in some ways, but it's still because we look at that kind of excess and we can't relate to it.
Maybe that's it.
I just can't relate to the waste of that. Because, with the common man, lower middle class, and lower class, whatever the classes are, people that struggle financially, like I said, I don't make that much as a pastor, but I've worked for years and years and years since I was 15, building up Social Security, trying to put money away for retirement. We just look at that as a waste.
Well, we wish Lauren and Jeff the very best. We hope they have a long-lasting marriage that lasts forever.
Yeah.
Through thick and thin,
hope they
rich
find real
or
faith.
poor, even if something doesn't go right, we hope your marriage lasts forever. And anyway, that wraps up our show. Pastor, thank you so much.
Hey, no problem. God bless you.
Take good care, everybody. We'll talk to you next time here in Rebel Religion in the News.